Alrighty, hello, hello, hello. It is that time again for another lunchtime live presented by Inspirational Talk with Sunil. And today's Inspirational Talks lunchtime live is Creative Conversations. And so I am your host and transformational empowerment architect, Tennille M. Jackson. And I'm excited about today's show. First of all, just to give you the background, Creator Conversations is a show where we will be having conversations with creators. So, whether authors, filmmakers, musicians, singers, any type of creative, even an entrepreneur. So, when I say that, all entrepreneurs are not in the same industry, right? So those are some of the creatives that I named. Those are a creative type of entrepreneur. Then you have other professional types of entrepreneurs that may have their own businesses. They may have their own clothing lines, makeup lines. They might just have professional services that they offer. But regardless as to what their offering is, if they are making an opportunity for themselves, then it is a great chance that you might hear from that type of creator on this show. And so, what we're doing today, we're going to be talking from the filmmaker aspect. If you listen to last week's show, we were talking from the perspective of an author. And so, if you are a filmmaker or you desire to be a filmmaker, then this show is for you. And our topic today is why storytelling matters. And so, again, from the perspective of a creator, whether you are an author, whether you are a filmmaker, whether you are a composer, a songwriter, a lyricist, a poet, when you are taking your thoughts, you're putting them pen to paper to convey a message, regardless of what medium you use. So, whether the output is a book, a song, a movie, film, documentary, whatever it is, that is a form. All of those are different outputs, different ways, platforms that can be used to tell a story. And so, why does storytelling matter? Well, first of all, is one of the ways to be able to keep the message going, right? So if you look at it from a nonfiction standpoint, which is pretty much where that's the area that I delve in, and we'll come back to that a little later. But a lot of, whether you talk about biopics, whether you talk about documentaries, what regardless of how you look at it, autobiographies, these are all ways that you can keep the story going, right? So, like, let's say many people who come along nowadays, and if you were not taught in school the history of certain people or certain times, then that's where and how storytelling comes into play. The unfortunate part of the world that we live in today, they have been successful in taking certain textbooks out of schools, and they're still trying to get histories of certain people, aka African Americans and most minorities. They would like to have them erased from the storybooks, almost as though we were never here. You just woke up one day and you were just surrounded by a whole lot of black people, and you wonder, well, how in the world did they get here? And depending on how your mind thinks, you may be feeling, well, what have you all contributed? You all are nothing but freeloaders because you have no history that's telling you anything different. You just live on the block with us or live in the city or the state with us without knowing who we are and what we have done for centuries. Okay. And so that is the danger when stories don't continue to move forward. And even if you don't want to go on a great scale like that from a societal perspective, think about even within your own personal family, death is going to happen. It might start out and you got Big Mama, and then, but Big Mama passed away, and then you got Mama, but then she gone. If the stories about your family's history history does not go from generation to generation, then by the time it's you have no idea what where you come from. You don't know any of, past victories, defeats. You don't know struggles. You don't know victories. You don't know anything about your family if someone doesn't tell the story. Even you say something as simple as going to the doctor. Before you get to a place where you're old enough to fill out your medical history, right? So, like, let's say you go to a doctor's office, and oftentimes, especially if this is your first time going, they don't have any patient history on you. What are they going to do? They are going to ask you not just your medical history, but they are going to ask you the medical history of your family. And if not the extended family, they're definitely going to want to know about your parents, your mother and your father. And so, if no one told you those stories, if no one told you, oh, this runs in our family, this person had this issue, this disease, this condition. Number one, you can't fill out the form, but even greater than filling out the form, you have no idea what you are susceptible to, right? I am a stroke survivor. And as being a stroke survivor, I did my research to find out that Blacks are more susceptible to having strokes than any other counterpart. Women are more likely to have stroke than men. If it was someone in your family who had a stroke, then you are more likely to have a stroke. So, seeing as how I check every box, Black woman whose father and maternal grandmother had strokes, my biological father died from a stroke, then that right there let me know, oh, it is very likely that you will probably have a stroke. And guess what? I did more than once. So now that I'm a mother who has four daughters, then you know what I'm telling them? You know what? Make sure you guys are aware, because you are Black women whose mother had a stroke. So we know that 80% of strokes are preventable. So now, because you are in that lineage of stroke, then you definitely want to be a lot more aware. You want to be a lot more mindful, so that way you don't have to suffer that same fate, or at least you're doing as much in your power not to, right? The point that I'm making is to say that that's a story that has to be told. And if that story isn't told, then that's awareness that is not raised. And so many times, even the Bible says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. So many times, it's the things that we don't know that can and many times will hurt us. And so that's the reason why storytelling matters. And so, whether you're doing it from that non-fictional standpoint, so you're conveying the message of a historical time, whether you're doing it even from a fictitious purview, right? So maybe, you are a person that likes certain genres. You like comedy, you like romance, you like sci-fi, paranormal. Like, these are other ways where you can entertain. Many times we understand that these are not true stories, right? These are things that just helps to keep us entertained. And sometimes it might be wrapped in narrative fiction, which pretty much is a way of telling a general truth without telling a specific truth. Think something like a Law and Order. Many times before the show comes on, it will say that these shows, or this story, this episode was pretty much based, all of the people, these were just fictitious people and ideas. However, when you see a story about a woman that was raped, we know that there is a such thing. That's not something that's fictitious. Now, was it that specific woman on that episode? Absolutely not. That was someone who agreed to play a role. But generically speaking, a lot of the storylines in shows like these, like Chicago PD or Chicago Med, these are actual occurrences in many people's lives, but it's not happening to those specific people. So therefore, That's more of what we call a narrative fiction genre, where it's based on a true story, but the identities may have been tweaked. The actual things that happen may have been altered or adjusted for whatever the sake was, right? Many times we don't want to name the innocent, we don't want to bring people into the story. And so there are so many different reasons why storytelling matters. But again, holistically, it matters. You want to educate, inform, empower, and entertain. That's primarily the reason why we have various storytelling platforms. And so, if you're tuning in today, I appreciate you for being here, whether live or on the replay. Thank you for taking your time to tune in. If you are not already connected with me, then I do ask that you solve that problem by going to Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, and even YouTube. You can find and follow me at my name is Tennille. And once you get to YouTube, take an extra second and hit that subscribe button, and I would greatly appreciate it. Also, if you want to know more about what it is that I do as an entrepreneur, because even though my title is Transformational Empowerment Architect, what that really is a form of I am an entrepreneur. I have my own business. And if you want to know more about what that business is, then you can go to my website, which is my name is Tennille.com, and there you'll be able to see everything that I do, all of the communities that I have created. You'll be able to see the various events that I have coming up. You'll be able to even work with me either in the capacity of a publisher, a strategist, or hiring me for a speaking engagement at your event. Those are all ways in which you can work with me. There's also apparel and digital products, and the list truly go on and on. And so if you are interested in finding out exactly what it is that I do, then again, feel free to go to that website, which is my name is Tennille.com. Now, jumping back into today's story, this is, well, actually, it's not today's story, it's today's podcast, Creative Conversations. Our topic is why storytelling matters. And so I've already been spending like that first segment, kind of giving you all some information as to why it is that storytelling matters. And I want to do a little bit more. Actually, for these next few minutes, I am going to share with you all my personal background. And then beyond that, in terms of being a filmmaker, and beyond that, I'm going to actually give you an excerpt of my first documentary. And so I am still relatively new to the game. When I started out, the year was 2022. And I had created my first documentary. It was a full feature documentary, and it was called The Four Eyes of the Black Man. And so, matter of fact, there we go. So when I first, my first documentary was called The Four Eyes of a Black Man. And when I did this documentary, this was coming off of George Floyd and everything that had happened with George Floyd. That was where the inspiration had come from, just seeing the state of our world and how Black men have been impacted by everything that continues to go on in our world. And so, as a creative, you can decide how you want to help, how you want to get involved. And so, originally, it wasn't necessarily that I was saying, "Ooh, let me just do this documentary." That is not that is not at all how it happened, right? So I was actually in the midst of an anthology project. Every year I host an anthology cohort, and this particular cohort was composed of a group of ladies, and the topic was depression. And so there was one contributor or participant, and how she chose to discuss it was talking about how depression looked on her husband. And so, between everything that had been going on in the world from a societal standpoint, as well as hearing her story, I was really inspired, and I'm like, we need to do something for our Black men specifically, right? Like, I think in general, men probably don't have the same types of safe spaces that women have, but specifically with our Black men, it's an entirely different plight that they have to endure, again, because of the likes of George Floyd or Trayvon Martin, or, like, this has been going on with us for generations. You know what I mean? Like, I can say some names that might sound familiar right now, but you can go all the way back to the Jim Crow South and even further than that. I mean, like, for generations, Black people have really been going through some things that nobody else could really imagine. And I know a lot of times, we'll bring the parallel up of the Holocaust, and so it's not to downplay that, but it is to say that my focal point was to create something that could serve as a safe space for our Black men, to kind of serve them in a way of saying, I hear you, I see you, and I understand that what you're going through, it matters, it's serious, and awareness needs to be raised for it, right? And so initially, what I thought that I was going to do was an anthology, because again, my primary background is a literary one. So by 2022, I had defensively had well over a dozen books to my credit. I had been, hosting these anthologies for a while, so this was what I knew to do. And keep in mind, well, the film launched in 2022, but this was probably like the top of 2021 when I got the inspiration. So we're still like not totally out of COVID. We're COVID pandemic. This is still what that time is looking like, right? And so in either case, I was thinking about all of the men that I know, not just in my family, but colleagues, co-workers, people I've known, for whatever the reasons are. And I was like, you know what? They have some great stories to tell. However, comma, I knew that many of them were not authors, right? Like, I think a couple of them that I interviewed were, but holistically, these were not authors. So these were not men who would just feel comfortable taking pen to paper to just share their stories, right? But I had a feeling that if I asked them to tell me their story, to share with me certain things, that they would probably say yes. And so that really is how the concept was born, where I knew that I was going to interview them, right? So instead of saying, hey, can you all write a chapter for me and just give me the chapter once you're done, it became, can I interview you? And the bigger vision was to kind of update what we look at as Black history. Many times when it comes to Black history, we're focusing solely, that month in February, 28 days. And so what we know, what most people know when they think about Black history, is going to be contained under the names of Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, many might say Rosa Parks, Oprah Winfrey, and then you have the Obama's, former President Barack, and First Lady Michelle. That's pretty much it. I mean, you really gotta delve deep with some people to get even the names of like a James Baldwin or W.B. Du Bois or Marcus Garvey. You know what I mean? Like, most people, they're gonna go for current athletes. So you'll hear, like a LeBron James, you'll hear maybe Serena Williams. Many people still will put in a Tiger Woods or something like that, right? But a lot of people wouldn't say Thurgood Marshall. You know what I mean? A lot of people may not know who Arthur Ashe is. So we stop being taught holistically in school. It stopped being taught about all of the Black women who did think. You think about like a Madam C.J. Walker, first self-made millionaire. You know what I mean? Like, these are not the same things that my children and what will be my grandchildren. they will not be taught the same things. Again, we're living in a world where they are trying to eliminate Black history from books. Okay. So they don't even want our contributions known, much less to be able to tell the story of how we fit in and who we are and the contributions that we have. You understand what I'm saying? So for me, it was, I want to interview 28 Black men. And the reason for 28 is because, for the exception of leap years, is 28 days in February. So this was my way of saying, let's look at Black history a little bit different. Like, I am so grateful for what all of our forefathers, our ancestors, those who came before us. I am so grateful for the John Lewises. I'm so grateful for the things that happened on Selma. I'm so grateful for Marian Anderson. I'm so grateful for all of these people. And if you don't know these names, go Google them. But I want it to also be what's going on right now. We have some great things going on right now. We should not have to go back 50 years to find some Black people doing great things. It should not end with the fact that Barack Obama was the first Black president. You know what I mean? Like, every day we have Black men and women, but specifically with men, doing great things. And we need to be aware of them, even to the point of changing what we look at as being a great thing. You know what I mean? Like, so many times, it's not unless somebody walks on the moon. It's not unless somebody climbs Mount Everest that we look at these as being great things. But how about the fact that I showed up, that I was present in my household? This was a two-parent household. I made sure that my children was fed every day. You know what I mean? Like, so this was the mindset that I had. And so I said, well, you know what? I know all different types of Black men. And what I wondered though, so it wasn't just, I want y'all to tell y'all stories so people can think y'all great. No, it was, I want for people to be able to see the world through your eyes. Like, I want for you all, by the time that this interview is over, I want for people to have an idea of what it means to be a Black man in America, right? And so I wanted to interview not just 28 Black men from Chicago. I wanted to interview 28 men across the country. I want to interview men of all different ages and all different professional background, because I really was interested in knowing if any of those factors mattered. Like, would a younger man, say 30 years old, would the world treat him differently now than, say, a 70-year-old? Would someone who lived in Chicago experience the world different than someone who lived in Atlanta or in Indiana or in North Dakota? You know what I mean? Like, these were really the questions that were on my mind. And so I created 28 different questions, and there were four, I guess, what you would call pillars or things that these questions kind of uh, fell under. And so they were identity, knowing who you are; insecurity, what is it that you endure; influence, who is it that you are able to help or who has helped you because of how they've led; and then impact, what are you going to now do with that knowledge? So the idea was to be a progressive buildup, right? And so as I'm interviewing the first guy, I'm saying to myself, like, I'm hearing his answers, and I'm like, oh, this would be great as a documentary as well, right? So you have to understand, I love documentaries, right? Like, my girls always talk about me because they're now, as they're getting older, they're starting to have more of an appreciation for documentaries. But I love documentaries, whether you're talking about like an expository documentary, which was what mine was, and pretty much what an expository documentary is. Just when you think about a voiceover, so like the entire thing is just all voiceover. So it's not any actual It's all B-roll. Okay, so basically all pictures and clips with voices with a voiceover. Okay, but there are so many different types of documentary. But for me, I love to learn. So I love the story, the message that comes with it. And so I already knew hands down this was going to be a documentary. I could hear it, I could see it. I didn't necessarily know how to make it work because even though I have a degree in communication, I was more so wanting to be a journalist. So, my degree is that type of communication in terms of the written form. But I just knew that this was something that I had to do. This was something that I needed to do. And so I'm like, okay, I don't know how it's gonna all come together. But the first thing I want to do is let's get the 28 men. And so I had, reached out, called different ones, and it was a great thing. Like Bible say, all things work together for good. And so this was probably one of the few good things that came out of the pandemic. But because of the type of guys I was interviewing, they are typically always gone busy. They do things. But because of the pandemic, everybody was on lockdown, right? And so it made it the perfect time to reach out and interview. And they were all, they were all totally game. They were very interested in the project itself. They were honored to be chosen. And like I told them, I don't want for you all to give me what you think I'm looking for. I'm not looking for anything other than your truth and your vulnerability. So this was not a Zoom with 28 men. These were 28 separate interviews that were conducted. None of the men knew who any of the other participants were until it was over. Okay. So it started out me just interviewing them, and then this became what I call the Black Man Project, which then was the Black Man Extravaganza. So it was a book documentary combo. And I then, we had a premiere at a movie theater. And so all of these men, well, I won't say all of them because all of them were not able to attend, but I want to say out of 28, 16 of the men showed up. And you all have no idea how overwhelmed with joy I was. Because again, these men were not just from Chicago that I interviewed, number one. And these men did not just come from Chicago to attend. I had participants that came from Indiana, from Michigan, from Ohio, from Georgia. Like they flew to be here for this premiere. And it just really blew my mind. I was so just grateful and thankful for their participation, for their belief in my vision, and for what it is that was able to transpire on that night. Needless to say, we launched it in February 2022. And so like we did the documentary, and we did like a Q&A afterward, and then I gifted them all with a book and something else. I don't remember. I think it was like a book and a plaque and whatever else. As a matter of fact, here is the actual book. So everything, because keep in mind when you're talking about a documentary, when we say a feature film, I think technically a feature is anything over 60 minutes, right? And my documentary was 97 minutes long. And then shorts are anything under that. But then you have like micros, which I think officially are what, like a few minutes, like maybe 5 minutes or less, something like that. But it's all different types. And again, much like the literary world where I didn't know anything and I had to educate myself, the same was said of this industry as well, because even though I did and do have some filmmaker friends, mostly all of the friends that I know, they do all like narratives. So like storytelling, so like basically the regular movies that you guys would go and see, so like a Love Jones or, so dramas, comedies, like all that stuff. I didn't know any other documentarians before I got started. So here it is, one more time. I'm in the industry by myself, trying to figure it out by myself, And so the point was, I knew interviewing 28 men, this was not going to be a short, okay? So I knew that. And so it was really something trying to figure out how to interweave their stories, how to narrow it down, because what you have to understand is like, I want to say the shortest interview, so each of the 28 participants were all asked the same 28 questions, 28 men, 28 questions. I did not give them a time limit. I told them, put 2 hours to the side just in case that's what you need. Because I'm thinking to myself, okay, if it's 28 questions, and say if it take them, 3 to 4 minutes, maybe even 5 minutes to answer each question, then you're looking at a little over 2 hours. So I said 2 hours. But I will say, I think my shortest interview was 42 minutes, I think. In other words, one man answered all 28 questions in 42 minutes. And I think the longest interview was maybe over 3 hours. And so I had to play all of that back over and over and over again to figure out what did I want to extract from that to put in the documentary. And then, okay, it's only so many minutes that can go into this documentary. And so if you're saying, okay, 28 men, and like I said, I think it was like 87 minutes. So you're averaging not even 4 minutes if you do it like that. But it wasn't quite like that. You have to see it. And I'm gonna show y'all a little excerpt. But anyway, and so a great deal of what was not stated on the documentary, it ended up in the book. And even with this isn't all of the interview, but it is pretty much each man's answer. So I kind of put them in chronological order from the youngest. So we started out, obviously you have an introduction, but with identity is the first chapter. So I literally went through and gave you each man's identity. Okay, so you got each participant from the youngest to the oldest, and at the time, the youngest participant was 30, and the oldest participant was 70, I believe. Let me check to just verify, but I believe the oldest participant was 70 years old. Let's see if I'm right. Yes, at that time was 70. And so to put this together, and like I say, keep in mind, I traditionally, even in the literary realm, have been nonfiction self-help, right? So this right here, this was probably I did one novel before, but this is not a novel. This is literally just a compilation of their interview, and is as it pertains, or as it falls under those four pillars of identity, insecurity, influence, and impact. And so, not for nothing, I was like, wow, like God used me and elevated me to a whole different level. So number one, I can't take the credit for this because I'd never done this. But two, I didn't give myself the content. The men gave me the content. I just had to be the architect. I gave them the questions, they gave me the answers, and I just had to figure out how to interweave it to make it work. And so, if you have been tuning in thus far to Creator Conversations, today's topic that we have been discussing is why storytelling matters. And so we're talking from the perspective of a filmmaker. And so I've kind of shared with you guys a lot of different tidbits of information just as it pertains to that topic. But before we move forward, I do want to encourage you all, if you have not already done so, to please connect with me on social media, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, or even YouTube. You can find and follow me at My Name is Tennille. And once you get to YouTube, please take that extra step and hit that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to visit my website, which is mynameistennille.com. And so if you're looking to see how you can work with me, what are some ways in which I might be able to assist you in your respective journey, then all the answers will lie there at that website. So my name is Tennille.com. And also, if you guys are interested in any upcoming events that we have, because there is actually an upcoming event for my creator community of artists promoting success. Our reunion gala is quickly approaching. It is going to be on Thursday, August 27th. And so every year since 2017 was its inception. And every year I take the time to host a gala where I just show appreciation and we just celebrate everything it means to be an independent artist. It started out the first I think the first 3 years was just celebrating authors. And that's because originally the organization was called Authors Promoting Success. But at some point in 2019, I changed the name from authors to artists. And so now it could include all creative, all types of creatives. So whether you were an author, a poet, a singer, a musician, a filmmaker, we wanted to be able to work together because holistically, at its core, all creators kind of need the same help, whether it comes, and when I say help, I mean education. So whether you're talking about knowing how to market yourself, promote your business, get your brand out there, network with other individuals, get an exposure. We all need to know that how to do those things. And so that's literally what I teach with APS, Artists Promoting Success. And so, like I said, we did the first event, the first gala was back in 2017. And now this is 10 years later. And so we are doing what I am deeming the reunion gala. So if I celebrated you in any of these past years, you are going to be brought back in the room, and it's going to be like a where are they now type feel. And so if you want to be in that room, then again, go ahead and go to the website. My name is Tennille.com, and you'll be able to see the various events that we have. And you'll definitely see that on the calendar under signature events. So feel free to visit the website and get more information about that. And hopefully you'll be able to join us on Thursday, August 27th of this year. Now, let's get back to creator conversations, and we're talking about why storytelling matters. And so, for these next few minutes, I want to preview for you all, allow you to look at an excerpt from my award winning documentary. And so, let's say that I think what I'll do is I'll just show you all, I'll show it to you all first. And then we'll come back and we'll talk about not necessarily the process, but because I've already kind of shared with you the process, but I just want to see what your thoughts are when you see, or better yet, hear this. So here is the four eyes of the Black man.
It's an honor. It is not just a title, but to me, it's almost an achievement. It's a destiny.
Today's society is much more transparent. You have much more opportunity than ever before.
Now, to be a Black man is to be able to tell your story, have some validity added to it.
Not only to exist in the world and be able to find your place, but to let other people know who you are and realize that for yourself.
It's a time to stand up, stand tall, stand strong, and demonstrate the very best of what manhood should look like.
You definitely have to have an awareness of what's going on in not only your community, but what's happening around the world, what's happening within the United States.
Because Black men actually are admired by many. Many of other races are kind of jealous of Black men.
A real Black man is being a leader, being a provider, being a teacher.
Rediscovering who we are and having the courage to stand in that position of authority.
You have core values, and you set those core values for yourself and your family.
I've never allowed the obstacles that have been thrown in front of me to deter me from saying, I know I deserve better, and I'm going to have better.
A lot of our greatness shines through, despite the fact there's a lot of things set against us.
Be
strong and powerful in public all the time and probably never be vulnerable around other people.
You have to be a survivor. You have to be able to adapt. You have to be resilient.
That you have to do more. You have to separate yourself from the pack. There's always this double consciousness that you have to live with. Like a lot of times you can't be your authentic self.
We have to be on our P's and Q's, right? Like we got to try to strive to dot every I and cross every T.
You have to work harder. You have to be better than your best. You always have to know that you have to go a step further.
Man, you have to go above and beyond. You have to be not just ordinary, but you have to be extraordinary, as you have to do the extra in everything.
Challenges it always been on top of our game, whether it's in our field of practice, whether it's even relaxing. We always have to be on.
It's just trying to remain a upstanding citizen, quote unquote, work a job, pay taxes, do what you need to do to integrate into society effectively. And then also live with the truth that this country or this world or this society isn't necessarily built for us, even if it was mostly built by us.
The melanation of your skin automatically puts you in a predicament.
Being a Black young man is difficult. Driving your car, it's difficult taking the bus, walking to the store, it's difficult in your workplace.
You feel this subliminal pressure. You almost feel like you don't belong.
You're dealing with a world that has been taught to dismiss you.
It means fighting through the stereotype of society, fighting through the abandonment of family issues.
It's scary out there, but at the same time, I'm proud to be a Black man.
Just like the movie, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. The good is the pride, knowing that I believe we're kings in a way, but the kingship is tied to handling your responsibility. But the bad, of course, is that the lack of understanding, which leads to the ugly. The ugly is just bigotry and racism.
I had hoped and prayed that after all this time, it wouldn't be so hard to be Black in America.
Alrighty. So y'all get it. Y'all get it. I want to quickly talk a little bit about what you just saw, or again, what you just heard. Now, what I did, that was the opening of the documentary, and that was very risky, what I did. So if you're watching this and you're wondering, no, the entire 87 minutes was not like absent of picture. It was an intentional choice that I made to do it the way that I did. So if you looked at it, the same question was asked 3 different times, but the emphasis changed each time. So the first time it was, what does it mean to be a Black man today? Right? And so then the second one is, what does it mean to be a Black man in today's society? And then the last one is, what does it mean to be a Black man? So the emphasis for each one is different. And for me, it was the beauty, the gold was in listening to the responses to be able to understand. It wasn't about the image that would accompany it, but it was being able to really hear what each man was saying. And it was so powerful to me the way to end it, because again, keep in mind, everything, if you are a Black man, everything that was said, and the last participant said, I would have hoped and prayed that by this time, by all this time, it wouldn't be the same. And at the time, the participant, he was the next oldest, he was 66. So imagine what he has seen in his lifetime. And the fact is that he's saying is still basically the same, right? And so after it comes on, then we go a little bit further. I ain't gonna tell y'all about all that, but I will say that if you go to my website, my name is Tennille.com. Under Get Educated and Empowered, there is a tab for film. And so you'll be able to see it there. And if you want to see the entire documentary, then you have the ability to see it there by going to mynameistennille.com. But I will share this with you guys. So as you can see, this movie, I entered it into a lot of different film festivals. And so if you look to my left, the medallions or whatever you want to say that's on the left, these are all of the film festivals that it was an official selection. And now I'll share that a little bit more. What's the difference between the two? And then on the right, you have all of the film festivals that it actually won. So much like my first book, I was fortunate to be able to come out of the gate winning multiple awards, making me a national and international award-winning filmmaker. Okay, and so basically, when you enter oh my goodness, a film festival. I don't know why I'm getting tongue tied, but when you enter a film festival, well, first of all, let's back up and say when you have a movie, so whether it's a docu-series, a TV episode, a film, a movie. So most of the time when it's documentaries, people either say documentary or film, and then when it's something that's a different genre, they'll say a movie. So to get exposure for that, then you will enter it into a film festival. Okay, you will or you can. So think like some of the biggest ones that most people have heard of. Some of the most popular would be like I think it's Cannes or Cannes, however you want to pronounce it, Cannes, Sundance, and then Tribeca. Right, those are probably some of the longest standing film festivals. Some of the most popular ones that all types of celebrities enter. Right, you also have the American Black Film Festival. It's a lot of different ones. And so what I was amazed to see when I became a documentary, when I had my film, was the fact that guess what? These same opportunities were there for me too. So it wasn't in order to, if you want to go on this ride, you got to be this high. No, the fact that this was my documentary, this now opened doors for me that I didn't even know had existed. I remember with the Detroit Black Film Festival, I attended that one, and I was actually in the same room at the same table with the man who created the 688, right? And I remember him giving a speech because his film won, and he was saying to us then that he was in talks with Tyler Perry for making this an actual movie. So when it came out, I think the following year it came out, I was like, it was just such a surreal moment because I was in the room sitting at the table, not just with him, but he had some of the survivors from that 688. He had brought a few of the ladies there with him. And so just to be there in that moment was very surreal. And so in either case, did every festival that I participated in, that I submitted the film to, did it win every festival? No. Did I expect it to? No. Was I absolutely amazed when it won any? Absolutely. Because this was my first film. I didn't know what standards were. I didn't know anything. I just had, this was an idea that I had. And what happens when you do win different contests or whatever is it just really gives validation. So I'm not saying that you should do it or you shouldn't do it. What I'm saying is what it does is provide validation, because it may be, well, this is something that I believe is a good idea, or I believe is a good project or product or service. But when you get awards, what that does is confirm that I'm not the only one who thought there was something great about this. Somebody else agrees with me. That's in essence what it is saying. And so to be selected, when you have the official selection, that's like the first level. So they're like, so it could be the first level or the second level, because there are different levels to each. Some contests only have 2 levels. Some have 3. Some just like, hey, either you won or you didn't. So some is like, okay, well, we'll narrow it down. So we'll pick, so we have all of these different entrants, right? So these different people who entered the contest. And so from there, we're going to see, of all of these, we want to narrow it down to the top, however many. And then if you get into that, you're an official selection. So that puts you, if you're looking at it from like bottom up, so like everybody that entered, you entered. But if you're selected, then that puts you a little bit higher, and then you're a winner. So enter, selected, winner. That's how it goes. And so those 3 that you saw on the side from those film festivals, I may not have won, but the film was selected. And then on the other side, those were all of the different festivals that I actually won. And I won festivals across the country as well as across the world. I think it was something from like Paris, something from, I'm trying to remember some of the other countries. And that right there, again, it is just a blessing. And so I don't want to hold it up anymore. I just want to kind of let you guys know, because matter of fact, look, I spent the whole show talking about my documentary. Your girl, hold on, let me show you this. I also, after the documentary, I ended up creating a docu-series. Now, apparently, that's going to be another podcast topic for another day, but this was a totally different experience, because unlike one 87-minute feature documentary, one feature film, the docu-series I Survived It All was a docu-series. It was 5 different episodes. And so this is what you kind of would call episodic TV, right? So there were different, when you guys go to Netflix and you see series, or not series, season, you'll see season 1, and under season 1, it might be 5 episodes, 6, 8. It just depends on what the number is. Well, what I created, this was not necessarily seasons. This was it. And there were 5 episodes to this. And so I may come back again. I don't want to introduce this now because I don't want for it to run too long. But just know that if you are looking to tell your story, and maybe you don't consider yourself to be an author, meaning you're not good with the pen. You're not going to write and sit down and write all of these chapters perfectly, or you don't want to get an editor, or you don't want to be known as an author. But you still have a story. Then here, being a filmmaker, that is another avenue that you can use. It's another way you can tell your story. So again, there is different categories. So it's a such thing as like a microfilm. So again, it could be something that's like 5 minutes and under. Then you have a short film. Then you have a feature film. You know what I mean? So it just really depends on what you want to do. And maybe you don't want it to be a movie. Maybe you want to go to the silver screen. You want to be a screenwriter, meaning do something for TV. Maybe you want to do webisodes, stuff that's on YouTube. So it's so many. The world is really your oyster, is the point. And so if that is what it is that you are looking to do, it's so many different ways that you can get started. But the first thing I would do is to say, try to figure out exactly what medium that you want to undertake, right? Like what genre do you want to go in? Because even though, yes, all filmmakers have to kind of deal with some of the same things, me being a documentarian, the way that I interact with my quote unquote subjects, right, is a little bit different than someone who's doing a narrative, and because they're telling a story. So they're like shooting scenes. My scene would not look the same, right? So it's just totally different. And can you shoot across genres? Absolutely. Spike Lee does it. When you think about him telling the story of Malcolm X, that was a documentary in a way. He just did it differently. So he made it more narrative fiction, but it was based on the story of Malcolm X. Okay, so this was a nonfiction movie, but then you turn around and he did something like Do the Right Thing, School Days. But primarily, Spike Lee is known for being a conscious or a woke filmmaker. He's going to bring to your attention the things that's going on in the world. And so you have some people, just like with anything, some people are fans and they really like his style of storytelling, and some people may not. But regardless of whether you like him or not, does not negate whether or not you can figure out your own lane. If you have a story to tell, or you want to tell the story of what's going on in the world, the four eyes of the Black man. I'm not a Black man, but that still did not prevent me or prohibit me from being able to tell the story of those who are. And so in either case, I want to thank everybody who took the time to tune into today's Creator Conversations. I appreciate you for tuning in. And again, if you are a creator, then you may want to consider connecting with me. You may want to consider joining my community that I have for creators, which is Artists Promoting Success, or we just simply call it APS. And you can go to the website, mynameistenio.com, and under communities, you can click on APS, and it'll give you all of the information, all the perks and benefits that is included with membership. And in fact, right now we have a very great opportunity that is going on. You can access all four communities: my creator community, APS, the women's community, I'm glad to be a woman, our spiritual community, which is for faith walkers, and it's called Paces, or even that community that's for the person who needs a reset on their life. You are able to get access to all four communities for only $39 a month. And it's going to be for just a limited time. So I would encourage you strongly to go ahead and get in now while you can. Because what I will say, whereas I will not tell you when the limited time is going to end, I will tell you that the price that you are now being able to pay to access all four communities, when the limited time ends, that's how much it's going to be per community. So get in now while the getting is good. And if you get in now, you are grandfathered at that price. So that means that you would always pay $39 a month to access all four communities. But in either case, I appreciate everybody who tuned in, whether you are an author, filmmaker, singer, musician, publisher, or entrepreneur, or you endeavor to be one. This show will always be geared to you to make sure that you get the conversation that you need. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you guys have a blessed rest of your day.